Last night at my brother's engagement dinner, his fiancée looked at me across the table and froze. She set her wine glass down slowly and said, "Wait, you're the founder of Next Bridge." My mother nearly dropped her fork. My father went quiet, and my brother Jason just stared, mouth slightly open like he had never seen me before. I smiled, just a little. That moment was worth every family dinner where they asked about Jason's residency and skipped over my name entirely. It was worth the years they called my work a hobby and asked if I needed help finding a real job. Because now, the woman sitting beside my brother was Horizon Health's Director of Acquisitions. The same woman leading a $215 million deal to buy the platform I secretly built from nothing. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Sometimes silence is the loudest way to say I told you so. I grew up in a house where excellence wasn't celebrated. It was expected. My father, Dr. Richard Monroe, was the heart surgeon other doctors called when things went wrong. My mother, Diane, was a corporate attorney who won every case and never let you forget it. And then there was Jason, 4 years older, straight A student, captain of everything. He followed Dad into medicine like it was his birthright. At dinner, the question was always the same. So what did everyone accomplish today? Jason always had an answer. Published. Research lab assistant offers glowing mentor praise. When it was my turn, I said things like, "I'm learning to build websites." Mom would smile tight and polite and say, "That's nice, but don't forget debate team colleges want consistency." Dad never looked up from his plate. That smile, that silence. It taught me early what I loved didn't count here. My world lived in the margins of theirs. While Jason's trophies filled shelves, my walls held lines of code printed from an old inkjet. I'd stay up learning HTML and CSS, then drag myself through chemistry the next morning. No one noticed the dark circles under my eyes, not unless my grades slipped. And when they didn't, they assumed I was fine. At 15, I created a website to organize our school's fundraiser. The event coordinator was stunned. It cut her planning time in half. "You have real talent," she told my parents at a school open house. Mom smiled and said, "Rachel has many interests, but we're focused on pre-law right now," as if my work didn't matter, as if their plans for me had already been written. I stopped sharing after that. It hurt too much to hand them something I loved only to watch them set it aside. Junior year, I entered a regional coding competition. I'd spent months building an inventory system from scratch. Clean logic, smooth interface, it worked better than I expected. The finals landed on the same Saturday as Jason's med school acceptance party. I asked if someone could come with me just for support. Mom said, "Sweetheart, your brothers worked so hard for this." You understand, right? She didn't wait for an answer. So I went alone. No cheers. No cameras, just me, a borrowed laptop, and 38 strangers in a high school gym. And I won. First place. Judges' real engineers said I had vision, that I should build something bigger. I brought the trophy home that night. The house was packed with relatives toasting Jason. Dad glanced at my award and said, "That's wonderful, dear," before turning back to the wine. That night, I made a promise to myself I would never beg to be seen again. Senior year, the college pressure began. My parents had a short list: Yale, Stanford, Princeton, anywhere with a strong pre-law track. I didn't apply to a single one. Instead, I chose Midlake State. Great computer science program, not a name they'd brag about at dinner parties. When my acceptance came with a full merit scholarship, I handed the letter to Dad. He read it once, then set it down. "You're throwing away your potential," he said, voice flat. Mom asked if it was too late to switch to a school with a better law track. Jason said, maybe I just needed to get this tech thing out of my system. I didn't argue. I just packed. And for the first time, I felt something close to peace. Leaving home wasn't rebellion. It was survival, and the start of finally choosing me. College felt like breathing after years underwater. No more report cards on the dinner table. No more pretending my passion was a phase. At Midlake, I wasn't Rachel Monroe, the disappointment. I was Rachel, the coder. Professors knew my name by the second week. Classmates came to me for help debugging projects. I joined late-night study groups that turned into build sessions. We made apps that didn't matter, weather widgets, food trackers, but they felt like freedom. One night after class, I met Emma. She was quiet sharp, and her Python code was cleaner than mine. We stayed in the campus cafe past closing, talking about everything we hated about healthcare apps. She said my mom was misdiagnosed 3 times. Not because of bad doctors, just bad systems. That sentence lit a fuse. We didn't know it yet, but that was the night Next Bridge was born. Emma and I couldn't stop thinking about it. A platform to fix what medicine kept getting wrong: communication. Doctors, nurses, patients, all lost in outdated systems. We sketched ideas on napkins, whiteboards, the backs of receipts, a secure, intuitive way for hospitals to track, update, and share patient data. Something clean, something human. That summer, we turned her parents' garage into our lab. No AC, no funding, no backup plan. Just 2 laptops, too much caffeine, and wild belief. Her parents brought us sandwiches and asked real questions. Mine called once and asked if I'd thought about transferring to law school. I lied. Said I'd consider it, then kept coding. We named it Next Bridge, because that's what it was: a way forward. A way across. Every line of code was one more brick in the bridge out of who they thought I was. By junior year, we had a working beta. Hospitals were interested. Professors introduced us to potential mentors. We entered pitch competitions and won enough to file our first patent. At home, nothing had changed. At Thanksgiving, Jason got a toast for completing his residency rotation. I got asked, "Still doing that computer thing?" I smiled, nodded, passed the potatoes. Told them I was learning data management. Close enough to the truth, far enough to avoid questions. Uncle Rob said, "Hey, tech's getting big. Maybe you'll find a help desk job." I laughed politely. They didn't know we just signed our first hospital pilot program, or that our platform reduced medication errors by 30% in month 1. But I didn't tell them. Not because I was ashamed, because I was tired. Tired of explaining my life to people who had already decided it didn't matter. Senior year, things moved fast. Next Bridge had its first real client. We hired a developer, moved from the garage to a tiny co-working space. One night at Thanksgiving, Dad pulled me aside by the dessert table. He looked serious, like he was about to deliver a diagnosis. "Your mother and I are concerned," he said. "Jason can help you get an admin job at his hospital. Something stable." I blinked. We had just onboarded our 3rd clinic that week, but all he saw was his daughter floundering in tech. I took a breath. "I'm starting a company," I said calmly. He laughed. Not cruelly, just baffled. "A business? Rachel, be serious. You need experience first. Get a real job." That was the last time I tried to explain my work to them. I didn't need their belief, but hearing that laugh still stung. Emma and I moved into a tiny apartment in Chicago's South Loop. 1 bedroom, 2 desks, 4 mugs, and no money. We lived on ramen and freelance web gigs, whatever paid the bills. Next Bridge was growing slowly, but quietly. We couldn't afford marketing, so we let our results speak for us. Hospitals began noticing. 1 clinic led to 5, then 10. Still, every time I visited home, I wore old clothes, drove the same beat-up car, let them believe I was barely getting by. Not because I wanted to lie, but because I couldn't handle watching their eyes glaze over when I talked about something that mattered. Letting them underestimate me felt safer than watching them pretend to care. We got featured in a medical journal, just a paragraph buried near the back, but it called Next Bridge a breakthrough in real-time hospital communication. Emma framed the page. I stared at it for an hour. At work, we were building something that saved lives. At home, I was still figuring things out. My parents didn't ask questions, so I didn't offer answers. Jason told me Sophia, his girlfriend at the time, worked in healthcare too. "Maybe she can help you find something more stable," he said. I almost laughed. Instead, I smiled and said, "Thanks." Because what else was there to say? I wasn't ready to reveal the truth. Not yet. Not until it was too big to ignore. We hit 25 employees, secured our first investment, $1.2 million from an angel investor. Emma wanted to announce it publicly. I hesitated. "Use my name," I said, "but no photo." She looked at me puzzled. "You sure?" I was. I didn't want strangers to recognize me, not yet. Not until I was ready to be seen. They started calling me the ghost founder. No LinkedIn, no headshots, just quiet results. And strangely, the mystery worked. It gave me space to grow without the weight of anyone else's expectations. A mid-sized tech firm offered to buy us. $30 million. They sent their execs in suits and smiles, telling us how easy life could be if we just said yes. Emma and I sat across from them in secondhand chairs, listened politely, took their slides, then said no, because this wasn't just about money, it was about control, about building something the right way, our way. The next day, I didn't tell anyone, not my parents, not even my friends from high school. They wouldn't understand why we turned it down. They thought success was a salary, a job title, a name on a door. But to me, real success meant freedom. By 26, I had paid off my student loans, moved into an apartment with tall windows and quiet mornings. Next Bridge had clients in 3 states. We were onboarding faster than we could hire, but when I visited home for Christmas, nothing had changed. Jason talked about his residency. Everyone nodded, impressed. When they asked me how work was, I said, busy. That was enough for them. They didn't know we had doubled revenue that quarter. Didn't know a hospital CEO had called our platform the future. Mom suggested I let her introduce me to a friend's son, just in case this tech phase doesn't last. I didn't even flinch. I just poured more wine and thought, one day you'll see. Next Bridge was now in over 100 facilities. Error rates dropped. Patient satisfaction soared. The metrics told a story my family never asked to hear. So I read them to myself like prayers. 43% fewer communication mistakes, 38% faster patient updates, dozens of letters from doctors thanking us for what we built. But at the next family dinner, Dad said, you should really consider a management course. Broaden your options. We were negotiating international pilots. We were being studied in grad schools. I smiled and nodded, because explaining would only invite their version of help. And I didn't need help. I needed space to finish what I started. At family gatherings, the script never changed. Jason, the golden son saving lives. Me, the polite guest with no updates worth hearing. Aunt Karen asked if I was still doing IT things. Uncle Rob told me Google was hiring. I said I run a company. They blinked, then smiled like I'd said something cute. Keep at it, someone said. You'll land somewhere good eventually. I wanted to laugh, but I just nodded and passed the bread. What would be the point? They didn't see me. Only the version of me they had built in their heads, the one still struggling, still searching. Meanwhile, our platform had just been rolled out across an entire hospital network, but none of them knew, because I didn't tell them, and they never asked. Emma's parents invited me for dinner often. Her mom made empanadas. Her dad asked questions about our growth. They didn't always understand what we were building, but they listened. They cheered when we hit milestones. Saved articles about our work, told neighbors that's our daughter's company. I never said it out loud, but their belief filled a space my own parents had left empty. Emma once said, you don't need your family to get it. And maybe she was right, but part of me still wanted them to. Not because I needed approval, but because I wanted to be seen by the people who'd looked through me for years. That hope was small, but it never completely died. Jason got engaged. His fiancée, Sophia, worked in healthcare tech. My parents were thrilled, finally, someone serious joining the family. At the engagement party, Dad gave a toast. To Jason and Sophia, 2 brilliant minds shaping the future of medicine. Everyone clapped. I sipped my drink. Emma, who'd come with me as a guest, squeezed my hand under the table. Nobody asked us about our work. Nobody knew we just signed a multi-year contract with a hospital chain. Nobody knew Next Bridge was now valued at over $50 million. But I was done measuring myself by their awareness. Let them celebrate what they could understand. I knew what we were building, and one day soon they would too. One Sunday afternoon, my mom called unexpectedly. Jason mentioned you might be between jobs. I nearly laughed. We were talking with Sophia's parents, she said, and her dad knows someone at Apple. Pause. They might have entry-level openings. It could be a fresh start. There it was. The belief that I needed rescuing, that I was adrift. I said, thanks, Mom, but I'm happy where I am, she replied gently. Don't be proud, Rachel. We just want what's best. She didn't know we had 70 employees, that we were finalizing a deal worth over $200 million. She thought she was helping, but what she was really saying was, we still don't believe you can do this. The next day I called Emma. You're not going to believe this, I said. Sophia, Jason's fiancée, was Horizon Health's Director of Acquisitions. The same Horizon negotiating to buy Next Bridge. Neither of us had met her during talks. It had all been handled through Teams and emails. Now in 3 weeks, we'd be at the same dinner table. She'd think I was Jason's underachieving little sister, and I'd know she was the one leading the deal to acquire my company. It felt like the universe had written a plot twist just for me. And for once, I didn't feel nervous. I felt ready. Not to impress. Not to perform. Just to be seen exactly as I was. A week before the dinner, Horizon's formal offer arrived. $215 million, with terms that would keep Emma and me on board for 3 more years. It was everything we'd worked for: validation, scale, stability. Emma stared at the screen in silence, then said, "We did it." I nodded, still trying to feel the moment fully. But something held me back. I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about that dinner. The room where no one would know who I really was until it slipped out. We agreed to accept the deal, but I asked for one condition: no press yet, not until I was ready to tell the story myself. Because after all these years in the dark, I wanted the light to hit on my terms. 2 days before the dinner, Mom called again. Olivia Sophia's family is very accomplished. Everyone will be dressed to impress. I looked down at my silk blouse, hand-tailored trousers, clothes she'd never noticed. "I'll find something suitable," I said. She hesitated. "At Christmas, your outfit was still very collegiate." It didn't sting anymore. Not really, but it reminded me how deeply they'd clung to their version of me, the one who never quite measured up. I chose a simple black dress, understated, elegant, like the quiet confidence I'd earned. No branding, no performance, no need to prove anything, but no more hiding either. Bluebird was all candlelight and glassware. Private dining room, soft music, every detail carefully arranged. I arrived on time, not early, not late, just enough to avoid helping or making a scene. Jason hugged me. He still saw me as the little sister with big ideas and no plan. He led me to Sophia. She was poised, warm, sharp-eyed, exactly the kind of woman my parents respected instantly. When Jason introduced us, she smiled and said, "Nice to finally meet you. He talks about you all the time." I wondered which version she knew, the family story or the real one. Either way that night would answer the question. I was seated at the far end of the table, next to cousin Lila, who once told me tech was just a trend. Dad made the first toast to Jason, who has made us proud every step of his journey. Mom followed, listing his awards like trophies in a museum, and now she said he's found someone equally brilliant. They clinked glasses. No mention of me. Of course not. I wasn't part of the display. Sophia glanced at me once or twice during dinner, her brow furrowed, like she was trying to remember something. I kept my face neutral, my answers short. I didn't need to force the moment. It was already coming. Between courses, someone asked if I was still in IT. Before I could respond, Sophia turned to me slowly. "Sorry, your last name is Monroe, right?" Her voice was soft but clear. Jason laughed. "Yeah, she's my sister." "Why?" Sophia froze, her eyes locked on mine. "You're Rachel Monroe?" she asked, "the founder of NextBridge." The entire table fell silent. Forks hovered mid-air. My mother blinked, confused. My father leaned forward. Jason said, "That's not possible. My sister works in tech support." Sophia shook her head. "No, she's the CEO of the company we're acquiring for $215 million. And just like that, the silence became something else. Something sharp, something unforgettable. My father's wineglass paused halfway to his lips. My mother's hand reached for her necklace like it might explain something. Jason stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I looked at Sophia and said quietly, "Yes. I co-founded NextBridge 6 years ago." The silence was deep and full of rewrites. Everyone at that table was recalculating. Sophia broke it gently. "Your platform reduced errors at Boston General by 60% in year 1. It's why Horizon's making the largest offer in our division's history. My parents said nothing. They didn't know what to do with this version of me, the one they'd refused to see." I didn't gloat, didn't smile. I just breathed, and for the first time took up space without apology. After dessert, the shift was complete. The same relatives who once pitied me were now asking about tech investments and IPO timelines. My mom said twice, "We always knew Rachel had something special." My dad leaned in to tell Sophia's parents how I'd been building things since middle school. I answered questions with short, calm replies. Not rude, just measured, because I wasn't going to rewrite history with them. Not for comfort, not even for closure. Jason stayed mostly quiet, processing, watching. He looked like someone trying to remember a dream and realizing it was real all along. As people filtered out, my mom caught my arm. "Rachel, we need to talk. Really talk." I nodded. I'd like that. And I meant it, but not on her terms, not with revision. Jason helped Sophia gather their things. He didn't say much until we reached the coat rack. Then softly, "Why didn't you tell me?" I met his eyes. I tried. For years, he looked down, said nothing. I didn't need an apology. But a question like that, it came from regret. And that was enough for now. The next morning, my phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "We need to talk. Brunch at the Drake, 11 a.m. They were already seated when I arrived, impeccably dressed like it was a board meeting. My dad stood awkward. My mom opened with, "We read everything this morning, press case studies." She paused. "Why didn't you tell us?" I took a breath. "Because every time I tried, you dismissed it. You never asked what I was building. You only asked when I'd stop." My father leaned in. "We just wanted stability. You misunderstood our concern." "No," I said. "You misunderstood me." They tried to explain that they were proud now, that they always believed I was capable. I let them talk. Then I said, "Belief doesn't count if it only arrives after the headlines." My mom looked down. My dad cleared his throat. "Well, maybe our expectations were too narrow." I nodded. "That's a start." I didn't yell, didn't accuse, but I didn't soften the truth either. Some things had to be said not for revenge, but for release. We left brunch with plans to meet again. Tentative, real, not a fix, but a beginning. That evening, Jason showed up at my apartment with a bottle of wine. No warning, just said, "Figured we might need this." He looked around my place. High ceilings, clean lines, a view of the skyline. Nice, really nice. We sat on the couch, glasses in hand. He stared at the floor, then said, "I've been an ass." I let him speak. "I liked being the one they bragged about. Made it easier not to ask too many questions about you." He looked at me, eyes open for once. "But I'm sorry. You built something incredible, and I'm proud of you. It wasn't everything, but it was honest. And for the first time in years, we talked, really talked like equals." Sophia texted the next morning. "Coffee, just us. We met at a quiet spot near the office. She didn't waste time. I'm sorry if I blindsided you at dinner. I had no idea who you were until that moment." I smiled. "It's okay." That moment was coming one way or another. She stirred her coffee, then said, "You know, you're kind of a legend in our department. They call you the ghost genius." I laughed. "Not sure that's a compliment." "It is," she said. "Also, Jason's lucky. Not many people get to call someone like you family." I didn't expect to like her, but I did. Sophia became a bridge. Not just between me and the deal, but between me and my parents. She explained my work in words they understood. She translated the scale into impact, revenue into reputation. My dad started asking real questions. Not judgment, curiosity. My mom tried too. She bought a book on startups, read half, asked awkward but sincere questions. They weren't fluent in this new version of me, but they were trying to learn the language, and I was learning to let them. Bit by bit, the people who once ignored my world were stepping into it. The acquisition finalized on a Monday. Emma and I sat in our office screens, glowing phones buzzing. We were officially centimillionaires. It didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like breath, like exhale. The press release included my full name this time. My photo beside Emma's, no more shadows. Mom framed the article. Dad emailed it to his colleagues. Jason posted it online with the caption, "My sister built this." The world knew. But more importantly, they knew, and I didn't feel like I owed them anything. Only myself. And I had delivered. 6 months later, family dinners looked different. Sometimes just Jason, Sophia, and me. Sometimes even my parents trying not to give advice. Jason brought dessert burnt or bakery bought. Sophia brought wine and warmth. We talked work, weddings, weather, sometimes even dreams. One night over coffee, Sophia asked, "Do you ever wish it had been different?" I thought for a while. Sure, it would have hurt less, but if they'd believed in me from the start, maybe I wouldn't have learned to believe in myself first. That silence afterward wasn't heavy, it was whole, because healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply sits with you and stays. There were still awkward moments. Mom slipped back into old habits, offering advice I didn't need. Dad occasionally acted like he'd always known I'd succeed, but I didn't flinch anymore, because I no longer needed their approval to believe in my worth. I started mentoring girls and tech high schoolers with big ideas and no one around to take them seriously. One girl said, "My mom wants me to be a lawyer, but I want to build things." I looked her in the eyes. "Then build them." She nodded like no one had ever told her that before, and I thought, this is what I was always meant to do. Not just build platforms, but make space. Jason and I were walking along the lake one weekend. Quiet, cold, honest. He asked, "Do you still think about how they treated you? Does it still hurt?" I paused. "Sometimes. Not the same way. More like a scar than a wound." He nodded. I wish I had asked more, listened more. I smiled. "You're doing it now. There's no perfect healing. Just progress." And this was enough. I visited my old room that summer. The code printouts were gone, but I remembered every line. Mom had turned it into a guest room. Still too neat, still too quiet. She came in behind me holding a photo. Me at 15 standing in front of that first website. She said I kept this. I just didn't know what I was looking at back then. Neither did I. But we both do now. She hugged me like she hadn't in years, not out of pride, but out of recognition. And that meant more. I don't perform anymore. Not for rooms that don't see me, not for families who confuse silence with failure. Now when people ask what I do, I say it simply, I build things that help people. That's all they need to know. And everything that matters. Emma and I still run Next Bridge, still lead, still learn. But now I let the light find me. I don't hide behind low profiles or first names because I've earned this place, every inch of it. There's a kind of peace that comes when you no longer need to prove anything. When you realize success isn't about being right, it's about being real. If you've ever been overlooked, dismissed, underestimated, I see you. And more importantly, I hope you see you. Because one day the people who ignored your light will have to take off their sunglasses. And when that day comes, don't gloat, just smile and keep building. Because true success isn't being seen, it's being unshakably yourself. If this story touched something in you, leave a comment, I see myself in this. And share it with someone still walking their silent path.